Oh, listener, you're going to get me started on something here. So, I talk about a lot of my time as a boxing fan and reading the magazines growing up and whatnot. But, the one difference was boxing was actually a real sport. Like, we know what wrestling was, right? Like, by definition. Wrestling, one of the brilliant moves about the whole thing was they literally had a soap opera in their magazine. So unlike boxing, which is reporting results and opining and stuff like that, you could literally create a world in the wrestling magazines. And the AWA you're talking about, that Nick Bockwinkel was champion of for so long, and Hogan was feuding with him for the title. They got remember a photo from when I was a kid with Hogan having Nick Bockwinkel in the camel clutch. And the funny part about that is, like we thought of the camel clutch as Iron Sheik's move, but that's the great part of pro wrestling. Nothing is consistent across the board. It changes moment to moment, right? Like, and you can live through the magazine, right? Like they create it, they paint a picture for you. And I remember I was a WWF fan forever, even before Vince and Shane moved into the neighborhood. Obviously, that's what made it special when they did move in. I would catch the other federations because I was in New York and that was WWE Stronghold, right? WWF Stronghold. Well, you catch other federations on TV and I'm like, oh God, this is horrible. But when you read the magazines, you can make it as big as you want in your head. You made it bigger than the WWF because as brilliant a promoter as Crockett was, like he would bag on the WWF all the time and Vince McMahon, and he'd make his federations look like they're great. And he put, of course, Ric Flair first, then Nick Bockwinkel in the AWA second. And I'll tell you what's interesting. The AWA, the one you're talking about, didn't really flop until I think it was Gagne, right? Like the owner, or was it Hennings, the owner? Whoever it was, he got a ESPN contract. And then they were on Front Street. So, I can see a guy doing that, signing an ESPN contract going, we're with ESPN, this is great. But the reality was that showed how ridiculously small time their promotion was, how few wrestlers they had, everything else, like their arenas didn't sell out because now they couldn't live through magazine pages anymore and be like a traveling circus or carnival or something. So, I find the whole gimmick part of wrestling hilarious. And listener, I read a book Hulk Hogan wrote years later, and what he talked about in the AWA and Hulkamania and all that, the owner wanted him to marry his daughter, right? Because territories were very, family oriented, right? And he wanted to make sure Hogan wouldn't leave him by marrying him off to his daughter. And Hogan left because he didn't want to marry the guy's daughter. He didn't want to be married. He was young and, headbanging still and doing everything young guys do. So Vince brought him over. And then when Vince first brought him over, Vince's father and Bob Backlund tried to talk Vince Jr. into leaving Bob Backlund as champ or having Bob Backlund regain his title from the Iron Sheik and not going in the direction that Vince McMahon dreamed of. And by the way, on that note, Vince McMahon, a lot of people get this timeline messed up, but Vince didn't bring Hogan over until after Rocky III. It was Rocky III that made Vince realize, okay, Hogan's the guy I want in here as my face because the whole world knows him because of Rocky, because of how powerful the theater and movies and particularly the Rocky franchise was back then. But yeah, man, good times. I mean, I often talk about boxing as my foundation, but let's be real honest. My foundation for combat sports is pro wrestling. As hilarious as that may seem, and it may seem stupid because it's a fake sport after all, but the characters are not, right? Like Nate Diaz are not fake and people love them, and it has nothing to do with their fighting talent. I mean, they're good fighters, but it has to do with their personalities. And that's what fighters like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, they taught us, right? It's about your showmanship and your charisma and what you can do. And yeah, anyway, there it is. I can go on and on. Everybody read my book, Warrior of the